like and subscribe right now, or you're going to have bad luck for the rest of the week.
Have you ever heard of any candy that is so dangerous that it had to be banned? No, don't worry. We're here to tell you about 10 such candies that proved to be so hazardous for human life that they got banned. Number 1 was actually dangerous enough to be life-threatening, so watch out for that. Let's begin. Number 10. Hippy Sippy. The 1960s was probably an experimental time, and things were evolving. That's the only possible explanation to how a product like Hippy Sippy was made available to the general public. It consisted of multicolored chocolate balls that were contained in a vial, and to get to them, you had to suck through a needle. Its similarities to drug abuse weren't accidental, but were actually the whole point of the propaganda that this candy was being used for. It was disguised to promote the hippie drug culture, with the needle and syringe being associated with heroin use and the colored balls representing uppers and downers. To make things even worse, each candy came with a note that had slogans like "Hippy Sippy says, I'll try anything," and "We sell happiness." Fortunately, some sense prevailed, and the products were banned in less than a year after being released. This could have been the most dangerous product to have been developed, as it promoted drug use among children. Number 9. Kinder Eggs and Wunderballs. The only way chocolate could be made even more interesting for kids would be to introduce a plastic toy along with it, after all the sugary goodness was gone. And that's exactly what the Kinder Egg and Wunderballs tried to offer. The Kinder version is available all around the world, and it contains a plastic egg that has a collectible toy in it to assemble. But do you know that it had been banned in the US for a very long time? It was all due to a law enforced in the 1930s that said it is strictly prohibited for a non-nutritive object to be embedded in any kind of food. The concern behind this was legitimate, being that some people wouldn't be aware that the treat they're about to eat would be containing something that can't be eaten, and it would therefore pose a serious choking hazard. It may seem like it is just some overzealous lawmaking, but the incident of a 3-year-old girl who died due to choking on a toy in a Kinder Egg proves that this law is not unjustified. Number 8. Toxic Waste Chew Bar. Toxic waste candy has become popular because of its extremely sour taste. But there was one product that arranged a toxic waste nuclear sludge chew bar that was banned in 2011. It had been originally launched in 2007, but there were some serious concerns about the ingredients used to make the candy. Not because it was too sour, but because of the place it was produced and the procedure of production. The company's factory was in Pakistan, and the FDA revealed that there were sufficient amounts of lead in the chew bar, and the levels were high enough to prove potentially fatal for small children, infants, and pregnant women. The regulations require lead levels below 0.1 parts per million, whereas the bars in question were found to have at least 3 times that upper limit. Candy Dynamics, the company that sells the toxic waste range of candies, complied with the recall, and the bars were removed from the stores and were banned. Instead of reworking on the recipe, they gave up on that particular candy for good. Number 7. Roadkill Gummy Candy. There are numerous gummy candies in stores, and in 2004, Kraft thought that they had come up with the idea that would help them to stand out among the rest. Each of the gummy candies they produced was in the shape of chickens, squirrels, and snakes with a tire track on them. But what was intended to be a tongue-in-cheek joke soon began to cause problems. They had to stop the production the following year after a series of gummy candies by animal rights activists who claimed that they trivialized the idea of hurting and killing the animals, and that the product gave the message to children that it was okay to harm animals. Kraft was therefore forced into rethinking the whole strategy. Number 6. Lucas Mexican Candy. Candy from South America is famous and in demand around the world, but this South American candy is an exception. The company named Lucas started targeting their products at children, and it was controversial since the beginning. Their product, known as Lucas Mexican Candy, was sold in a powdered form in a shaker container that children would use to shake into their mouths. Others were seen shaking the powder onto a table, arranging it in a line, and sniffing it, which immediately concerned people due to its similarities to drug use. Lucas claimed that this was the wrong usage of the product and it was meant to be a lightly sprinkled on fruit to make it taste better, but they should have considered that the kids would find a less healthy way of consuming it. Laboratory tests showed that the product also contained twice the allowed levels of lead and thus was immediately banned by the regulators. Number 5. Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. Haribo is one of the famous brands of candy around the world. But despite making a lot of candies that children and even grown-ups absolutely love, they haven't always gotten things right. In 2014, their sugar-free gummy bears caught attention due to some side effects they posed on people who ate them in large quantities. The reason for this was the substance that was used as a substitute for sugar that was almost as sweet as sugar, but contained half the caloric content of sugar. It was mainly composed of mannitol, which is a sugar alcohol, but our bodies can't fully digest it, and if it's present in high enough quantities, it can start to ferment in the stomach. There were a lot of Amazon reviews about it, some calling it napalm and saying it caused intestinal distress, and reminiscent of the trumpets calling demons back to hell. Would you want to taste these dangerous gummy bears? Number 4. Exploding gum. Candy companies are always coming up with new ideas and varieties to help keep up with the competition in the market, and people also sometimes come up with new ideas to try their candies in a different way. A Ukrainian chemistry student lost his life to one such incident after supercharging his bubblegum and coming off with tragic results. He'd like to increase the sour taste of the bubblegum of his favorite brand, so he'd often dip it into citric acid before chewing. One time he accidentally dipped it in the wrong powder, as it was not citric acid that he dumped his gum in, but it was some explosive substance. All it took was one chew and the gum exploded in his jaw, and most of the lower part of his face was blown clean off, and he died, unfortunately. Needless to say, this particular recipe of gum won't make it onto the shelves ever. Number 3. Free candy. What's better than candy? Free candy, isn't it? You might be thinking that the best kind of candy is free candy, but in Madrid, Spain, the tradition of giving any sweet treats for free is actually banned. On the 5th of January, a Christmas parade called Caligat de Deus is held all over the country, and it has 3 wise men greeting children before handing out gifts. The men are taken through the streets to a church in a carriage, and part of the tradition involves throwing candy from the carriage into the crowd. It has, however, led to numerous injuries as children scrambled to collect the candies, and in 2013, a 6-year-old boy, Malago, was killed as he went into the streets to collect as much candy as he could, and was hit by the carriage itself. After that incident, rules have been made to prevent any such unfortunate incident from happening again, and children in the region would now have to pester their parents like the rest of us to have their hands on some yummy candies. Number 2. Lollipipe. Even though lollipipes were never intended to be sold to children, their availability in a wide range of colors and flavors made it interesting to them, and kids eventually got their hands on them, which posed a real problem. Made from candy, these pipes were designed to smoke certain substances through, and one of their marketing claims was that they were flame-proof, so could be used over and over again. They became very popular among smokers, but they were believed to encourage children to use them for the purposes they were designed for, and this resulted in a significant increase in the number of underage people using drugs. The pipes were banned from sale in every 7-Eleven store in Indiana due to complaints from parents, and now are very difficult to be seen in a physical store, but those who really want them have to purchase them online. Number 1. Candy cigarettes. Candy cigarettes first came out in the market in the 1800s and were made up of sugar, gum, or chocolate wrapped in paper in a pack that resembled the box of cigarettes. Some varieties even had powdered sugar that you could blow through the candy sticks to simulate smoke. People later began to see it as propaganda to desensitize children to the idea of smoking, and some cigarette manufacturers even helped with the production of such candies and allowed their branding to be used on the packages. As medical researchers came out and people started to become more aware of the hazards of smoking, these collaborations became less common, and the products have now been banned in almost every country around the world, apart from the US and Canada. Studies show that a whole lot of smokers had candy cigarettes when they were younger, as compared to those who don't smoke. So the link between the two is proved to be significant. What do you think about it? Tell us in the comments below. What do you think of all these candies? Let us know in the comments, and also subscribe to our channel for more such content. And check out our other popular videos. See you next time!